We're just days away from reaching 1,000 subscribers. If we hit this goal in the next 15 days, we'll be able to keep the channel running and continue bringing you these stories. Your subscription makes all the difference. It's quick and helps us enormously. The Heart's Plunge. Chapter 1. The Heroic Sacrifice. Ravenswood Castle, Yorkshire, summer 1854. The estate's gardens stretched majestically to the shores of Thornfield Lake, whose crystalline waters reflected the setting sun's rays. It was the peaceful hour when the domestic staff finished their daily tasks and the ducal family relaxed in their salons. But that evening, the tranquility would be shattered by a drama that would forever change the destiny of all who witnessed it. Rose Whitmore, 22 years old, a chambermaid at the castle for 3 years, was finishing hanging laundry near the lake. Her auburn hair gleamed under the last rays of sunlight, and her green eyes scanned the horizon with that melancholy that never quite left her. The daughter of a fallen pastor who died in poverty, she had learned early that beauty and nobility of heart were not enough in this merciless world. "Miss Rose! Miss Rose!" The panicked voice of Timothy, the 10-year-old son of the gardener, made her turn around. The child was running toward her, his face decomposed with terror. "What's happening, Timothy?" "It's the little Lord William. He fell in the lake. He can't swim." Rose felt her blood freeze. Lord William Blackthorne, the 8-year-old heir to the Duke of Ravenswood, was a mischievous child who had the habit of playing near the lake, despite repeated prohibitions. Without hesitating for a second, Rose dropped the laundry basket and ran toward the shores. Through the weeping willows, she glimpsed the small figure struggling desperately in the water, about 20 meters from the bank. "William!" she cried. But the child was already disappearing beneath the surface. Rose looked around her. No one else in sight. Timothy's cries had alerted some servants, but they were running from the stables, still too far to intervene. In a few moments, it would be too late. Without thinking of the consequences, Rose tore off her shoes and apron and dove into the lake fully clothed. The cold water seized her brutally, but she swam with determination toward where the child had disappeared. "William! William! Where are you?" She dove beneath the surface, searching desperately in the murky water. Her lungs burned, her weighted skirts hindered her, but she didn't give up. Finally, her hands touched something small and lifeless. The child. With superhuman effort, she rose to the surface, holding William against her. The little boy was unconscious, his lips blue, his body lifeless. "No!" Rose sobbed. "No, you're not going to die. Not you!" She swam toward the shore, fighting against the weight of her soaked clothes and the unconscious child. Her strength was abandoning her, but determination carried her. She had to save William. She owed it to the Duke who, despite the social distance, had always been good to his employees. She owed it to this innocent child who had his whole life ahead of him. When she finally reached the bank, hands hoisted her out of the water. Through the fog of exhaustion, she saw the distraught face of Adrian Blackthorne, 7th Duke of Ravenswood, leaning over his son. "William, William, my son!" Rose knelt beside the child, and drawing from memories of gestures her father had taught her when he sometimes rescued drowning victims near their former parish, she turned William onto his stomach and pressed firmly on his back. "Come on, William," she murmured. "Breathe for your papa. Breathe." She continued her desperate gestures, ignoring the gazes of the gathered servants and even the intense one of the Duke. Her entire being was concentrated on this little life she refused to let slip away. Suddenly, William coughed and vomited water. Then he breathed weakly at first, then more regularly. "Papa?" he murmured in a faint voice. "I'm here, my son. I'm here." Adrian took his child in his arms, tears flowing freely down his cheeks. "Thank God you're alive." It was then that he turned to Rose, who had remained kneeling beside them, trembling with cold and exhaustion, her auburn hair stuck to her pale cheeks, her servant's dress soaked and torn. "You," he said in a voice strangled with emotion. "You saved my son." Rose tried to stand to curtsy, but her legs gave way beneath her. Adrian caught her just in time, and when their gazes met, something passed between them, something electric, unexpected, overwhelming. "Your Grace," Rose stammered, I just did what had to be done." "You risked your life to save his," said Adrian, not letting her go. "Few people would have done that, even among the nobles." Every child deserves to be saved," Rose replied simply, "no matter who their parents are." Adrian looked at this extraordinary woman who had just saved what was most precious to him in the world. This servant who spoke with the nobility of a duchess and had the courage of a lion. Holding her thus in his arms, feeling her heart beat against his, he had a revelation that struck him like lightning. He would never let her go, never. "Mrs. Henderson," he called to the governess who was running up, "take Miss Whitmore to one of the guest rooms, bring her dry clothes and take care of her like a lady of quality." "Your Grace?" Mrs. Henderson seemed surprised. "A guest room. But she's a servant." She's the woman who just saved the heir of Ravenswood," Adrian cut off in a tone that brooked no discussion. "And from now on, she will never again be treated as a mere servant in this house." Rose looked at him with stupor. "Your Grace, I don't understand." "You will understand," said Adrian, looking at her with an intensity that made her heart beat faster. "Soon, you'll understand everything." While William was taken to the castle for a doctor to examine him, and Mrs. Henderson escorted Rose to her new quarters, Adrian remained alone by the lake. In the space of a few minutes, his life had tilted. His son had nearly died, and a servant had saved him at the peril of her own life. But more than that, this remarkable woman had awakened in him something he thought dead since the disappearance of his late wife. Love. A deep, instantaneous, irrevocable love. He knew that society would condemn his feelings for a servant. He knew that his family would oppose any attachment he might develop for Rose Whitmore. But at this moment, facing this lake where his son had nearly died and where his own heart had just been reborn, Adrian couldn't care less. Rose Whitmore had just saved his son. And now it was she who had just saved him. He would never let her go, whatever the cost. Chapter 2. Revelations and Resistance. The next morning, Rose woke up in an ivory silk bed she never could have imagined touching, let alone sleeping in. The guest room where Mrs. Henderson had installed her was more luxurious than anything she had known in her life. Brocade curtains framed the tall windows, and a fire crackled in the marble hearth. A gentle knock at the door interrupted her contemplation. "Come in!" A young chambermaid she didn't know entered, carrying a breakfast tray and an elegant navy blue silk dress. "Miss Whitmore, I'm Sarah. His Grace asked me to take care of you this morning. He wishes to see you in his study as soon as you're ready." Rose looked at the dress with perplexity. "I can't wear this. I'm a servant." "His Grace was very clear," said Sarah with a smile. "You're no longer a servant, miss. You are. Well, we don't know quite what you are yet, but it's certainly no longer a chambermaid." An hour later, dressed in the silk dress that fit her perfectly, Rose headed toward the Duke's study with growing apprehension. What did he want? Why these clothes, this room, this treatment? She knocked gently on the study door. "Come in." Adrian looked up from the papers he was studying and remained speechless. Rose was dazzling in this dress that enhanced her graceful silhouette and green eyes. Her auburn hair was elegantly styled, and she wore her new outfit with natural grace that betrayed her origins. "Miss Whitmore," he said, standing up. "How are you? Did you sleep well?" "Very well, Your Grace, thank you. How is Lord William?" "He's perfectly fine, thanks to you. The doctor examined him and declared there will be no after effects. You saved him in time." Rose bowed her head. I'm happy about that, Your Grace. And now, if you permit, I'll return to my duties. No. The word was pronounced with a firmness that surprised her. Your Grace, you will not return to your servant duties, Miss Whitmore. That era of your life is over. Rose looked at him with confusion. I don't understand. Adrian walked around his desk and approached her. Rose, may I call you Rose? The fact that he used her first name troubled her more than she wanted to admit. If you wish, Your Grace. Rose, sit down, we need to talk. She sat on the edge of a leather armchair, back straight, hands crossed on her knees. Adrian took a seat across from her. Tell me about your family, he said gently. About your past. Rose hesitated. Why does this interest you, Your Grace? Because I suspect you haven't always been a servant. Your way of speaking, of holding yourself, of wearing this dress, everything indicates you received a lady of quality's education. Rose lowered her eyes. My father was a pastor, Reverend James Whitmore of Little Thornfield. My mother was the daughter of a fallen baronet. I received an excellent education until Papa lost his parish. What happened? He publicly defended a woman of ill repute against the village notables. He said that Christ forgave everyone and that we should do the same. Rose raised her eyes, and Adrian saw painful pride in them. They drove him out. We lost everything. Papa died of grief 2 years later, and Mama followed him 6 months after. And you? I survived as I could. I worked in various houses before arriving here. Being a servant was the only employment I could obtain. Adrian felt anger rise in him at this injustice, this remarkable woman, educated, noble of heart, reduced to servitude by narrow-mindedness and society's cruelty. Rose, he said, leaning toward her, I want to propose something to you. What, Your Grace? Become William's governess. You would be his tutor, his companion. You would have your own apartments, clothes appropriate to your new rank, a generous salary. Rose looked at him with stupor. Governess? But Your Grace, I'm only You are the daughter of a pastor and the granddaughter of a baronet, Adrian interrupted. You received an excellent education, and above all, you risked your life to save my son. There's no one in the world I trust more to take care of him. But people will talk. A former servant promoted to governess. People can say what they want. William needs a governess, and I want it to be you. Rose stood abruptly. Your Grace, I cannot accept. It wouldn't be proper. My position in this house. Your position in this house is what I decide it to be, said Adrian, also standing, and I've decided you're no longer a servant. Why? Asked Rose, and there was something desperate in her voice. Why are you doing this for me? Adrian looked at her for a long time. How could he tell her the truth? How could he confess that since last evening she occupied all his thoughts? That he couldn't bear the idea of her returning to her life of labor and humiliation? That he wanted to keep her close to him not only for William but for himself? Because you deserve it, he said finally. Because you proved your worth in the most brilliant way possible. Rose shook her head. I can't, Your Grace. The other servants, they'll hate me. They'll think I used my gesture to elevate myself above my station. So what? Let them think what they want. You owe nothing to anyone, Rose, except to yourself. No, said Rose firmly. No, Your Grace. I thank you for your generosity, but I cannot accept. Allow me to return to my usual duties. She headed toward the door, but Adrian caught her by the wrist. The contact of her skin created a spark between them, and they looked at each other with troubling intensity. Rose, he said in a hoarse voice, you will not return to your old life. I won't allow it. You cannot force me, Your Grace. No, but I can prevent it. Adrian released her, but didn't step back. Here's what's going to happen. Either you accept the governess position I'm proposing, or you leave Ravenswood with an excellent letter of recommendation and a sum of money that will allow you to start a new life elsewhere." Rose looked at him with incredulity. "You're dismissing me?" "I'm freeing you," Adrian corrected. "From this servant's life. That doesn't suit you. You deserve better, Rose, and whether you accept it or not, I'll make sure you get it." Rose felt tears rise to her eyes. "Why? Why are you doing this to me?" This time, Adrian couldn't lie. "Because when I saw you last night, courageous, selfless, ready to give your life to save my son, I knew you were exceptional. And exceptional people shouldn't be wasted on menial tasks." He approached her, and Rose felt her heart beat faster. "Accept, Rose, accept, and give us a chance to see what the future holds for us." Rose closed her eyes. She knew she was at a turning point in her life. Whether she accepted or refused, nothing would ever be the same again. And deep in her heart, she knew she was already lost. Because she too, despite herself, had begun to fall in love with the Duke of Ravenswood. Chapter 3. The Awakening of Feelings. 3 months had passed since Rose had accepted to become William's governess, and her transformation was remarkable. Dressed in elegant gowns appropriate to her new rank, educated and refined, she radiated with a natural grace that didn't go unnoticed. William adored her. The 8-year-old child, traumatized by his accident in the lake, had immediately attached himself to the one who had saved him. Under her benevolent tutelage, he flourished, not only intellectually, but emotionally, gradually overcoming his fear of water. "Miss Rose!" cried William, running toward her in the garden where she was reading under a centuries-old oak. "Look, I caught a butterfly, but I released it because you say we must respect the freedom of all living beings." Rose smiled, closing her book. "Very good, William. You learn quickly. Miss Rose, will you always stay with us?" The innocent question touched Rose's heart. "As long as you need me, my dear." "Papa needs you too," said William with the troubling perceptiveness of children. "He's happier when you're here. He smiles more." Rose blushed slightly. It was true that Adrian and she had developed a relationship that far exceeded the professional framework. They spent long evenings discussing William's education, but their conversations invariably drifted toward more personal subjects. Adrian spoke to her of his ducal responsibilities, of his loneliness since his wife's death, of his dreams for William's future. Rose, for her part, shared her memories of her father, her reflections on life, her secret hopes. "William," said a deep voice behind them, "shouldn't you be studying Latin?" Adrian approached, elegant in his black frock coat, and Rose felt her heart race, as it did every time she saw him. "Papa." Miss Rose was explaining butterfly freedom to me. "Ah, a philosophy lesson," said Adrian with a smile. "Miss Whitmore is indeed a very complete governess." Their gazes met, and Rose felt that familiar tension settle between them. For 3 months, they had been dancing around their growing feelings, never daring to cross the invisible line that separated them. "William," said Adrian, "Mrs. Henderson is waiting for you in the library for your Latin lesson. Please go." The child sighed, but obeyed. "See you later, Miss Rose." When they were alone, Adrian sat on the bench near Rose. "He adores you," he said. "It's reciprocal. He's a wonderful child, Adrian." She now used his first name when they were in private at his request. "Thanks to you, you've transformed him. You've transformed us all." Rose looked at him. He seemed troubled, almost melancholic. "What's wrong? You seem worried." Adrian hesitated. "My mother-in-law, the Dowager Duchess, arrives tomorrow with my sister-in-law, Lady Margaret. They're not aware of your new status." "Ah." Rose understood immediately. "They're expecting to find a traditional governess, not a former servant promoted." "That's not what worries me," said Adrian quickly. "It's Something else. What? Adrian turned to her, and Rose saw something intense in his grey eyes. They're coming to present me with marriage candidates. The Dowager believes it's time I remarried, for William's good and the lineage. Rose felt her heart tighten painfully. I see. And do you intend to follow their advice? No, said Adrian with a firmness that surprised her. Absolutely not. Why? Adrian looked at her for a long time. You know very well, Rose. The silence that followed was charged with unspoken emotions. Rose looked away, her heart pounding. Adrian, we must not. Must not what? Feel what we feel. Deny the evidence. You're a duke. I'm your employee, a former servant. The social distance between us. To hell with social distance. Adrian stood abruptly. Rose, look at me. She obeyed, and he read in her green eyes everything she was trying to hide. You feel the same thing I do, don't you? Rose closed her eyes. What I feel doesn't matter. Yes, it does, more than anything else. Adrian knelt before her. Rose, I've fallen in love with you, deeply, irremediably in love. Adrian, no. Rose opened her eyes, and he saw they were filled with tears. Yes, and you love me too. I see it in your eyes. I feel it when you're near me. Even if it were true, whispered Rose, it wouldn't change anything. You can't marry someone like me, your family, society. I don't care about my family and society. What matters is you, me, William. We could be happy together, Rose. We already are. Rose stood up, moving away from him. Adrian, be reasonable. Your mother-in-law is going to present you with women perfect for you. Duchesses, countesses, women educated in luxury and nobility, women who will know how to maintain your rank. I don't want those women. I want you. You don't know what you're saying. You're confusing gratitude and love. I saved William and you. No! Adrian caught her by the shoulders. No, Rose, don't say that. What I feel for you has nothing to do with gratitude. I love you for what you are. Intelligent, courageous, generous, beautiful. He gently caressed her face. I love you for the way you laugh with William. How you get passionate about a book, how you defend the weak. I love you for your soul, Rose. Rose felt her resistance crumbling. Adrian! Marry me, he said suddenly. Rose looked at him with stupor. What? Marry me. Become my Duchess. Be William's mother and the mother of our future children. You're mad, whispered Rose, but her eyes were shining. Mad about you, yes. Completely. Desperately mad about you. He drew her into his arms and kissed her. It was a tender kiss at first, then passionate, that swept away all the barriers they had erected between them. When they separated, Rose was in tears. I love you too, she confessed. God forgive me, I love you too, Adrian. Then marry me. Say yes. Rose looked at him, this wonderful man who was ready to defy the entire world for her. And your family? What will they say when they learn you want to marry your former servant? Adrian smiled. They'll learn that their duke chose to marry the woman he loves. And if they can't accept it, too bad for them. Adrian, think about it. Your title, your position. My title and position are worth nothing if I can't be happy. And my happiness is you, Rose. Rose closed her eyes, fighting against her last doubts. Then she reopened them and saw sincere love in Adrian's gaze. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Adrian, I'll marry you. And when he kissed her again, Rose knew she had just made the most important decision of her life. A decision that would soon be severely tested by the arrival of the Dowager Duchess. Chapter 4. The Test of Love. The next afternoon, the imposing carriages of the Dowager Duchess of Ravenswood rolled up the castle's drive. Rose, carefully dressed in an emerald silk gown that enhanced her green eyes, stood in the grand salon beside Adrian and William, waiting with apprehension for the confrontation that loomed. Dowager Duchess Margaret Blackthorne entered first, majestic in her black widow's dress, followed by Lady Margaret Pemberton, her daughter from her first marriage, a woman in her 40s, with a cold and calculating gaze. "Adrian, my dear son," the dowager coldly kissed Adrian on the cheek, "and my beloved grandson." William made a polite but reserved bow. Since his mother's death, he had never been close to his grandmother. "Grandmother, Aunt Margaret," said Adrian politely, "allow me to present Miss Rose Whitmore, William's governess." The dowager sized up Rose from head to foot, and her expression hardened. A governess, dressed like a lady of quality. "Miss Whitmore is a woman of great education," said Adrian calmly. "She deserves to be treated according to her rank." "Her rank?" Lady Margaret intervened with a mocking smile. "And what exactly is this? Person's rank?" "She's the daughter of Reverend Whitmore of Little Thornfield, and the granddaughter of Baronet Sir Harold Whitmore," Rose herself replied with dignity. "And I'm proud to serve Lord William as governess." The dowager raised an eyebrow. "Really? And how did a pastor's daughter come to work as a servant before being promoted to governess?" The silence that followed was tense. Rose felt Adrian's gaze on her, silently encouraging her. "My family went through financial trials after my parents' death," she said simply. "I worked to survive, and I drew valuable experience about life from it." "How edifying," said Lady Margaret with a venomous smile. "Adrian, I'm sure you understand we must speak privately. Could Miss Whitmore leave us?" "No," said Adrian firmly. "Miss Whitmore stays. What's said in this family concerns her." The dowager looked at her son-in-law with surprise. "Adrian, what does this attitude mean? A governess has no place in family discussions." "Miss Whitmore does," Adrian replied, "because I have the honor of announcing our engagement." The silence that followed was deafening. Lady Margaret turned livid, and the dowager sat heavily in an armchair. "Our what?" the dowager stammered. "I asked Miss Whitmore to become my wife and she accepted. We'll marry in a month." "No!" Lady Margaret jumped up. "Adrian, you cannot do this. Marry a servant? Think of your title of William." "I think of William constantly," said Adrian calmly. "And Miss Whitmore is the best thing that's happened to him since his mother's death. She literally saved him from drowning and has transformed him since." "Saved?" The dowager frowned. "What are you talking about?" William, who had remained silent until then, stepped forward. "Miss Rose dove into the lake to save me when I fell in, grandmother. She risked her life for me." The dowager looked at Rose with a little less hostility, but Lady Margaret had no intention of yielding. "Even if it's true, that doesn't justify a marriage. Reward her, give her money, find her a good husband of her rank, but don't marry this adventuress yourself." "Watch your words." "Margaret," said Adrian in a dangerously calm voice, "you're speaking of my future wife." "Your future wife?" Lady Margaret laughed hysterically. "Adrian, have you lost your reason? I brought Lady Constance Pemberton with me, the Duke of Wessex's daughter. A perfect woman for you, beautiful, educated, rich, of noble blood." "I don't want Lady Constance," said Adrian. "I want Rose." The dowager stood up slowly. "Adrian, sit down. We must discuss seriously." "There's nothing to discuss. My decision is made." "Your decision will ruin the family. Think of the scandal, a duke marrying his governess, his former servant." "The scandal will calm down," said Adrian. "Love, on the other hand, lasts a lifetime." "Love!" Lady Margaret spat the word as if it were venomous. "What is love compared to duty, to honor, to rank?" It was Rose who answered in a clear and firm voice. "Love, madam, is what drives a woman to risk her life to save a child she loves. It's what allows a man to recognize a person's true value beyond their social origin. It's what unites a family and makes a home. She turned to Adrian. But Lady Margaret is right about one point. Our marriage will cause a scandal. Your friends will turn their backs on you. Society will reject you. Is this really what you want for William? William will have his mother, said Adrian, taking Rose's hand. A mother who already loves him like her own son. That's all that matters. Papa is right, said William suddenly. Miss Rose, are you really going to become my mamma? Rose knelt before the child, eyes bright with tears. If you wish it, my dear. Oh, yes, more than anything. William threw himself into her arms. I've prayed every night for a new mamma, and God sent me the best one. The dowager watched this touching scene, and her expression softened slightly. Miss Whitmore. Rose. Are you sure of what you're doing? Being a duchess isn't easy. There are responsibilities, obligations. I love him, said Rose simply. I love Adrian, and I love William. I'll do everything to be worthy of their trust and love. And I, said Adrian, helping Rose to stand, will do everything to protect her from those who would want to harm or judge her. Lady Margaret made one last attempt. Adrian, will you at least agree to meet Lady Constance? Before making a definitive decision. My decision is already made, said Adrian. I'm going to marry Rose Whitmore, and nothing and no one will stop me. He turned to his mother-in-law. Mother, you can accept our union and remain in our family, or you can reject it and lose your son and grandson. The choice is yours. The dowager looked in turn at Adrian, Rose, and William. She saw the sincere love that united these three people, William's positive transformation, her son-in-law's unshakable determination. Finally, she sighed. Very well. If this is really what you want, Adrian, I won't abandon you. But this union must be done properly, a ceremony worthy of your rank, and Miss Whitmore must be prepared for her future responsibilities. Thank you, said Adrian with emotion. This means a great deal to me. Lady Margaret, seeing she had lost, left the room in rage. You'll regret this, all of you. When she was gone, the dowager approached Rose. My dear child, you've won the heart of a good man. Now prove to me that you deserve his love. I'll do my best, Your Grace, Rose replied. Mother will be perfect, said William confidently. She's already saved Papa and me. Epilogue. Triumphant Love. A year later, Duchess Rose of Ravenswood walked through the castle gardens, her few-month-old son in her arms, while William ran ahead of them toward the lake where it all began. Mama, Papa, come see! I found a swan's nest! Adrian joined his wife and kissed her tenderly. How is our little James today? He grows every day, said Rose, smiling, like his big brother. They watched William, now 9 years old, pointing excitedly at the swans swimming peacefully on the lake. Do you remember, said Adrian, the day you dove into that lake to save him? How could I forget? It's the day my life truly began. Mine, too, the day I knew I would never let you go. Rose smiled. Fortunately, you kept your word, and I'll keep it all my life, said Adrian, kissing her again, because true love never lets go. William ran toward them. Papa, Mama, the swans have babies. It's a family like us. Exactly like us, confirmed Rose, taking her husband's hand and her eldest son's. For sometimes an act of courage changes the course of an entire life. And sometimes saving someone else is actually saving yourself. The servant had jumped into the lake to save the heir, and the Duke had known he would never let her go. And he had been right. True love never lets go of those who truly matter.